Okay, good afternoon everybody. I hope you can hear me okay. I'm Mike Pickett from Norfolk County Council and I'm going to talk to you about our deployment of Google Apps for education within Norfolk. Does it need to be louder? Is that better? Yeah. I feel like Madonna now. I'm going to talk about our Google Apps for education deployment in Norfolk, which is across all schools in Norfolk, as well as some of the things we're looking at in terms of Chromebooks, how we can build on this infrastructure. So I appreciate we've got a lot of international visitors to Bet, so I thought I ought to put in a slide as to where Norfolk is in the UK. And I think demonstrated the power of Google and working in the cloud was the fact that I could do this on the train, thinking, oh, I haven't put this slide in. I didn't need to worry about USB sticks or transferring the data. It's there. So Norfolk on the east coast of England, East Anglia, famous for turkeys and tractors, or being stuck behind tractors. I think also famous for innovation, particularly Lotus is a good example, and hopefully I think our schools and some of what we're doing in our schools. So we were looking at a replacement email system about 3 years ago. We had a system already in place for all schools, for all students and staff, and we were looking to bring something that people are familiar with in the real world into the classroom, something we're all familiar with in work and the classroom. After a mini competition between Google and another well-known competitor, we chose Google. One of the reasons, and I've listed several here, was the open standards. Now, I think a big argument with cloud computing, and I think any type of application deployment, is about supplier lock-in and avoiding supplier lock-in if you want to move products. Google's open APIs, open standards, allowed us to be confident that we could get. Thank you. We were confident that we'd be able to put our data in and get our data back out again. Collaboration, the tools are fantastic for communication, collaboration in schools, always big on the agenda. And also, I think the productivity suite that comes along with the email part of Google. It's incredibly innovative as a service. When we were running the mini competition, a really good demonstration was an example demonstration in the classroom. All the children just come back from their school holidays, summer holidays, and the teacher set up a questionnaire quiz to say, okay, log where you went on holiday. So all the children answered that very easy to set up survey, and immediately in real time they could see, plotted on a spreadsheet, linked to Google Earth, exactly where everybody had been, and then what the carbon footprint was of all those journeys. So that was one example of how you could bring in all of the different parts of Google and beyond Google into the marketplace, into that environment. And finally, Norfolk's strategy for ICT in schools is very much cloud-focused. There are numerous potential benefits. Cost is obviously one at the moment, a very important one at the moment. Green IT, if you're sharing large data center resources and only using what you need when you need it, then obviously there's an argument that it's greener. We've got the potential to move the infrastructure out of schools and into the cloud, and therefore saving money, saving the cost of, from a support point of view, sending engineers out to all the different schools to fix things. So, our deployment. We've got 148,000 accounts, approximately, across one single domain, so the n6.org.uk domain. I'm led to believe it's the largest UK deployment across a single domain of Google Apps in the public sector. And that covers, again, approximately 420 schools, including academies. We've split, at the moment, the 420 schools into 840 odd organisational units. So essentially, that's each school has its own organisational unit, and that's then split into staff and students. Another key consideration for our deployment and going for Google was the ability to continue to use an email address that was e-safe. So our email addresses don't reveal the location or the gender of a child, which is particularly important. And I think around that as well, there's a lot of control around what parts of Google you can deploy as part of the apps for education. You can also say, okay, if I'm using Google Sites, I want staff to be able to publish to the web, but I don't want children to be able to publish to the web. And we could go beyond that into more granularity with different student groups. So some of the challenges that we faced included, because we've got a single domain, how we could actually enable flexibility and choice within each school and within each department, potentially within each school, in how they use Google Apps. When we first deployed, there were some limitations. We had, for example, at the time we had to say, if we want Google Chat on, it's either on for everybody or off for everybody. Things have developed since then, and as I said before, we're able to manage this at an organisational unit level, which I think is really important. One of the other areas, in our previous email system, we had a banned word list. We had a fairly crude email filtering component, essentially scored words, and if they reached a threshold of banned words, then the email would be blocked or sent to another account. That doesn't exist in Google. You have got the Postini anti-spam service. So what we did was we implemented our own banned word list. We did work with some other suppliers to do this, and I'm not going to pretend it didn't take quite a long time to get to something that we feel is fairly effective with as few false positives as possible. We haven't switched it on yet, so we've got accounts, or we've got emails being filtered and dropping in, if they're deemed inappropriate, then they drop into a central box, but users still receive the email and can send the emails. So we haven't switched on an e-safety account for each school yet, but we're in the process of doing. Okay, so how do we manage a single Google Apps for Education domain with 150-odd thousand users? Make sure that they're all current, make sure that whatever happens in the school's management information system, so which children, which staff are in the school and where they are, is reflected in Google in a similar way that you would with a learning platform and so on. We've cracked it. We had an identity management system already in place, ensuring that we had unique accounts for everybody. Again, linking back to the open APIs and the open standards that Google uses, we were able to link in a SIF agent, Systems Interoperability Framework, into Google and our identity management system, which, without going too technical, means that whenever the MIS system in a school, and that could be a cloud-hosted MIS, it could be a locally hosted MIS, is updated, as long as that MIS has a SIF agent, all of our other systems, including Google, are updated as well in near time. We manage passwords in that way as well, and it's secure. Another important thing for us, Shibboleth is our strategy for single sign-on, and we've joined the UK Access Management Federation. We have a Shibboleth identity provider, so we're ready to go. Google supports SAML 2, which is underlying Shibboleth. So we've switched it on for one of our services, Espresso, and we're going to switch it on for Google in the next month or so. So we'll have single sign-on between as many different services that we're offering schools as possible. And this is kind of how it looks. So we've got the management information system on the left. It's got a SIF agent. It connects to our zone integration service, which is effectively the hub that says, okay, I'm receiving this data from this MIS system. It can go here, here, and here. And in one case, it's the identity management system, and another Google. I've added Chromebooks in, which I'll talk very briefly about at the end, and how powerful the Google Apps deployment is in conjunction with a Chromebook. So I think I've talked about the ability to manage which applications are switched on and off for which groups. We've also built a fairly basic virtual learning environment aimed at our primary schools within the Google Sites part of Google Apps. And that's, I think we've got about 150 schools signed up to that now. I've talked about single sign-on. We've switched on Espresso Primary. Chromebooks pilot. So we've got just 25 Chromebooks, and we're piloting them in one infant school and one primary school. Really, for me, this is about the deployment. So because we've got our Apps for Education domain, we can effectively register these devices against the domain, send them out to the schools, and that's it. As long as they'd log in with their Norfolk username, their Norfolk email accounts, and we can then from the cloud decide what applications or what Google extensions are sent to them or sent to the desktop. So all the policy side of things that you traditionally do in, say, Active Directory in the school and so on and so forth is done from the cloud. Incredibly powerful, hugely saving in terms of our management resource, and potentially going forward, we don't possibly have to worry about servers in schools anymore. You don't need a file server, you don't need a directory server, storage server. All of this can be shifted. And I think the real coup with the Chromebook is it's probably the first device that I've seen dedicated to delivering that cloud-focused learning environment or work environment or personal environment. And so where are we going? Very briefly, we're going to, assuming our pilot is successful with our Chromebooks, we're going to look to a wider deployment and encourage schools to move in that direction where they want to. We're looking at, based around our standards, we're looking at a kind of Norfolk marketplace, a bit like a Google or Android or iTunes marketplace, where we can say to schools, because budgets have changed, schools have the budgets, local authorities tend not to have the control of those budgets as previously, and there aren't the same technology funds or harnessing technology as an example anymore. So we're looking very much at how do we say to schools, you can have all the choice and flexibility, you can have it within a managed environment. It still allows you to take advantage of single sign-on, still allows you to connect up your MIS to these different services. So we're looking at the same suppliers. If your service supports Shibboleth, SIF, if it meets Data Protection Act arrangement requirements, if it's accessibility compliant in terms of web stuff, then we'll put you on our marketplace and we'll say to schools, yeah, this is approved. Thank you, I think.